if you can see this, but one of the questions was, what are ghosts? Can people manifest themselves as images, symbols, or voices to their loved ones on Earth after they die? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. Do you believe that ghosts are real? Have you ever encountered anything like that? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. I'm going to give you my perspective, and I'm going to look at some verses. I'm going to look at some verses as far as what the Bible says about departing, about where we go. Is there such a thing as ghosts? A couple things that I want to talk about. Number one is that ghosts, let me just say this. Every human being is born with a body and a spirit. You're born with two elements to you, and the spirit and body are meant to be united together. Yet, because of the fall, because Adam and Eve sinned, brought sin and death to this world, our bodies will be separated from our spirit when we die. And when you die, you either go to be with God. If you believed in Jesus, your spirit will either go to be with God, your body buried or cremated, and or if you didn't believe in Jesus, your spirit goes to be in eternal conscious punishment in a place called hell. And that's bad news, not something that we like to talk about, but it's a reality that is true. And so people have this idea that ghosts exist and that you can communicate with your dead relatives. And so I want to look at some verses to talk about this. So 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 6 says, "So we are always of good courage. We know that while we are at home in the body, we are away from the Lord, for we walk by faith and not by sight. Yes, we are of good courage, and we would rather be away from the body and at home with the Lord." So the Apostle Paul here is saying that your spirit will be with the Lord, and it's better for you to be with the Lord. That's the hope. And the Apostle Paul's not saying that there's this middle stage where you can kind of wander around as like a spirit and kind of haunt people and open up some cabinets and throw some cups in the air invisibly. But let me know, what do you think about ghosts? You can put it in the comment section below. First, Philippians 1:23 says, "I am hard-pressed between the two. My desire is to depart and be with Christ, for that is far better." Again, when a believer dies, they go to be with Christ. They do not become an angel. They don't become a ghost, okay? So those are two false narratives that people often believe. And I want to talk about 2 Corinthians 11. Before I do that, I want to explain this. People can experience going to a psychic. People can experience performing some type of witchcraft, necromancy ritual, and hear voices. And sometimes they can mask as a deceased relative. Yet, that does not mean that you are speaking to your deceased relative. In fact, you're engaging in the demonic. You are inviting demons into your life, and you are talking to demons. I'll give you this as an example, 2 Corinthians chapter 11. "And no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So it is no surprise if his servants also disguise them as servants of righteousness. Their end will correspond to their deeds." So what this passage is saying is that sometimes demons can masquerade and mask as if they are good guys, as if they care, and that's ultimately to deceive you. Maybe you thought you were talking to, your dead grandma, dead nana, and you thought you were talking to her, and so you were actually talking to a demon in those aspects. So I have had encounters with demonic influence in my life growing up. I've experienced that in my family. We have plenty of stories where we can tell you about our experience with demonic power, hearing it, seeing demons, and how to engage that. I'm grateful for my dad, who had given me an example of how to be confident and bold and cast out demons when the need arises. When the need arises, if we see a demon, what we do, that we don't need to run and cower, but that we have authority in Jesus Christ to cast out demons. Now, I'm not encouraging people. There's really a lot of YouTube channels right now that are kind of like telling people that Christians are meant to go and seek out demons and cast them out. Christians don't need to do that. But when demons approach you, you should be able to have authority to cast them out or resist them and push back the darkness and cast them out of your house and things like that, cast them away from you. Oftentimes Christians can be tempted with evil things and evil desires. That's partly being tempted demonically, demonic influence around you. You have the authority over the enemy to flee from those things. You're not obligated to fall into temptation. But I just want you to know that engaging those things is demonic. Here's a passage, Deuteronomy 18:10-12. There shall not be found among any of you anyone who burns his or son or his daughter as an offering. Anyone who practices divination, so witchcraft, tells fortunes, so fortune tellers, psychics, or interprets omens, or a sorcerer or wizard, warlock, witchcraft, charmer, medium as far as someone who mediates between the dead realm and you, or a necromancer, someone who speaks to dead people or inquires of the dead, for whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord your God is driving them out before you. Let me know. I want to know what your thoughts. Have you ever seen a psychic? Have you ever experienced demonic presence? Have you ever seen unexplainable things that occurred maybe in your house and you thought it was a ghost, but it was a product of demonic power going on? But so Jesus the God is saying in Deuteronomy 18, you need to be away from those. Don't go visit psychics because you're inviting demonic influence into your life. Don't do anything with mediums. Don't go visit necromancers. They're not true. Here's another example, 1 Corinthians 10:13-14. Okay, so King Saul messed up, okay? King Saul messed up and he wanted to call Samuel from the dead. And 1 Corinthians 10:13-14 gives this brief summary of what he did. So Saul died for his breach of faith. He broke faith with the Lord that he did not keep his command, and also consulted a medium. Medium is a person, remember, that stands in kind of the middle to help communicate between the living and the dead and demonic realm. He consulted a medium seeking guidance. Man, what kind of people? Christians should never seek out guidance from people who aren't Christian. It's just crazy that people do those things. People are like, you know what? I really want to know, I believe in Jesus, but I really want to know what my future is. So I'm going to go to a fortune teller, or I really want to know what what will happen to me in my future. So I go to a palm reader. All these things are an abomination to the Lord, and they invite demonic influence into your life. So I would just encourage you to stay away from these things. I hope that I can be the one to let you know, if this is your first time hearing these things, that you should stay away from these types of things in your life. 1 Timothy 2:5. There is one mediator, one God, and one mediator between God and men, the man Christ Jesus. Only one. Mediums won't work for you. Necromancers won't work for you. Witches, wizards won't work for you. The one mediator that works is Jesus Christ. We speak to Jesus. He is our mediator. So there are no such thing as ghosts, as far as when you're dead, you become one. That's false. When you're dead, your spirit either goes to be present with the Lord or it goes to eternal conscious torment. But one day, everybody will be united to their bodies again. And for those who believe in Jesus, we'll get new bodies on this new heaven and new earth, and that is something to look forward to. And that's the implications of the gospel, and that's the end of the Bible. That's the end of the story of the Bible, that we were once separated from God, and when we die, if we believed in Jesus, our bodies are separated from our spirits, but one day we'll be united together. Jesus now has a physical body, and one day we will also have a physical body forever. We weren't meant to be separated from our spirit. We were meant to be unified together. And so that's good news, and God's going to create us a new body, and that's something to look forward to. If you receive value, like this video and subscribe to this channel. I like it and subscribe to this channel. I'm going to go ahead and look at some of the chats. Katrina, thanks for joining. You said, long story short, every weekend that my kids were here, I'd hear something at my bedroom window at night that sounded like a pebble hitting it. Mentioned it to Mr. Scott, and he prayed and demanded anything evil to leave this place. After that, I didn't hear the pebbles at the window. Thanks for sharing the story. Demons are present in the world, and they want to create a spectacle, and sometimes they expose themselves by doing certain things. Sometimes it's like the pebble. My dad has plenty of stories that he would love to share with you. I can share with the story. Also, anyone, you can feel free to share your story if you've had an encounter with demonic or any type of spirituality that you were uncertain about. Very first time that I experienced demonic exposition, demonic introduction, my introduction to hearing demonic influence, seeing it. I was 6 years old, and I heard a demonic voice loud and clear, but I was the only one who heard it in my house. And it was deep, but it was also raspy, and it kept calling for my older brother's name. Now, it could have been my dad's name, because my dad and my older brother had the same name, but it was repetitive. And then not too soon after that, about a year later, I remember sitting on the couch, not going to church that day, and my dad had kept us home from church, and he wasn't going to church at the time. He wasn't saved at that time. But my mom was going to church, but I stayed home, and he put on the movie Halloween for us. And all of a sudden, a mirror that was hanging on the wall fell randomly and just shattered and severed the wire so that we couldn't even watch the TV. True story, that happened. And it caused my dad to think a lot about God and a lot about Christ. And eventually, not too long after that, he came to know Christ and he's saved. But those are just some of my experiences. I'd love to hear some of your experiences. And subscribe to this channel. I'm going to read some of these comments. Mikey, thanks for joining, brother. Happy belated birthday. I did say happy birthday to you. When Samuel responds to Saul in 1 Samuel 28:19, what does he mean by that? Did that just mean he'll die and be in the afterlife, or will Samuel, or what does it mean? Did that just mean he'll die and be in the afterlife? Man, okay, I'll just have to read it because this is kind of going by quick. Or be with Samuel, and where was Samuel for him to be contacted? This is an excellent question. Excellent question. We should look at it, right? Because I looked at the summary verse in 2 Chronicles. But I remember looking up this passage when I went to Grand Canyon University for my Christian Studies degree, my bachelor's degree before seminary, before my master's, when I went to Christian Studies. And I remember going over this with one of my professors. And I want to let you know that this is what we have. This Bible is the same Bible that you have, the same Bible that I have. And we need to be able to interpret it properly and use biblical interpretation principles to interpret it properly. So we know that 2 Chronicles taught us, and Deuteronomy 18 teaches that consulting mediums is an abomination. It's sinful, should not be done, and it's demonic. But Saul does this. He evokes a medium and he tries to pull up Samuel. And so verse 19 says, maybe we need to look up Saul and the medium of Endor. In those days, the Philistines gathered their forces for war to fight against Israel. And Achish said to David, understand that you and your men are to go out with me in the armies. David said to Achish, very well, you shall know what your servant can do. And Achish said to David, very well, I will make you my bodyguard for life. Now Samuel had died. Samuel's a prophet. Samuel's the prophet and he was the priest. He died and all Israel had mourned for him and buried him in Ramah, his own city. And Saul had put the mediums and the necromancers out of the land. So he puts them out of the land. Good job. Get all the witchcraft, get all the wizards, get all the witches, get them all out because it's demonic. Verse 4 says, the Philistines assembled and came and camped at Shunem, and Saul gathered all Israel, and they camped at Gilboa. When Saul saw the army of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. So he's scared, he's afraid, he's fearful of man. And when Saul inquired of the Lord did not answer him, either by dreams or by Urim or by prophets. And then Saul said to his servants, seek out for me a woman who is a medium, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said, behold, there's a medium in Endor. So before we continue on, Saul is doing something evil. He did not wait for the Lord to give an answer. He did not obey God. He decided to do what many people do when they're waiting to hear from God. They decide to take matters in their own hand and they decide to sin. And so this is what Saul This is what Saul does. And Saul does something wicked. So verse 8 says, Saul disguised himself and put on other garments. It basically like, hey, I'm a follower of Jesus, but I'm going to put like a hood on and I'm going to go into this psychic place. I'm going to go into the psychic house and try to act like I'm not a Christian. That's basically what Saul did. He went with two men, and they came to the woman by night, and he said, divine for me by a spirit, and bring up for me whoever I shall name to you. The woman said, surely you know what Saul has done, how he was cut off the mediums and the necromancers from the land. Why then are you laying a trap for my life to bring about my death? So she's smart. She knows that what she's doing is wrong. And Saul says in verse 10, but Saul swore to her by the Lord. So weird. Swear to you by God, who disagrees with this decision, who thinks that this is an abomination. But I swear to you by God, as the Lord lives, no punishment shall come upon you for this thing. Then the woman said, whom shall I bring up for you, and bring up Samuel for me? When the woman saw Samuel, she cried out with a loud voice. And the woman said to Saul, why have you deceived me? You are Saul. The king said to her, do not be afraid. What do you see? And the woman said to Saul, I see a God coming up out of the earth. And he said to her, what is this appearance? And she said, an old man is coming up. And she wrapped him in a robe. And Saul knew that it was Samuel. And he bowed with his face to the ground and paid homage. Okay. This is interesting. The Bible does not. So what we know is that Saul is under the assumption that this is Samuel. Now, is it possible that Samuel somehow was able to come down to earth? Could God have allowed that? Possibly. Is it likely? Probably not. This most likely was a demonic influence. This most likely could not have been Saul. So this is also open for interpretation. This is open for interpretation. Some people believe that this was legitimately Samuel, that God allowed him to be present and be evoked up by a necromancer. I don't believe that that's consistent with the character of God, but that is an interpretation. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's outside of orthodoxy. It's a thought. I don't believe it's consistent. I do think that this was most likely not Samuel, and that this was overall demonic and shouldn't be done. Thanks for bringing that up. Mikey. I want to look at some of the other chats that we have. At that time, I believe that he was still being tormented by spirits. Yes, you're right. I agree. I think Saul was being tormented by demonic influence. I mean, he was enticed to even go see a medium. Katrina, you said, I felt that if the leader of the congregation will allow that and no discipline action for that, I didn't need to be there. Let's go back. You wanted to talk about. Also, thanks, Ice, for joining. This man's preaching. Yeah, thank you. You said this man's preaching to two people. God loves you. Keep doing this. Thank you. Thank you for the encouragement. Katrina, you said most definitely the church and my family. I attended a missionary that was giving lessons to my daughter and niece, was sending very inappropriate pictures, and my niece vice versa. I was told and shown to the bishop, who told us it would be taken care of, only to find out it hadn't. Never went back to that church or that religion. I think you're talking about Mormonism. You were right to leave that church, absolutely, and that is gross. That's wrong and evil. I forgot to mention that after we had went to the bishop over the situation, the church congregation pretty much shunned us, made us feel like we weren't welcome. Glad that you left that church anyways. If they were, I don't think that they were, I think they were Mormons. I think that's what you were talking about, bishops and Mormonism. But if they were a Christian church and they were doing those things, that's evil. That is a good reason to leave a church. So thank you for providing your insight into that and providing your story. Mikey, thank you for the question that you received, that you provided. Thank you for everybody. If you have any last questions, put it in the comments section below. I just want to thank you all for watching today. And if you received value, make sure you like this video and subscribe to this channel. And I will see you in another video.